All right, here we are. We are ready to go. We are going to start this new fun project we have. And if you don't already know, we have a special guest on our panel tonight, and hopefully she'll be a regular guest on the panel with us for the book club, the book cast, as I like to call it. And so whenever anybody pops in to check us out, you're going to be sorry that you're late or that you didn't come because we have Alice is in the house. Alice in the house.
In the house.
Alice,
Hello.
Alice from Ireland. Alice
Go
in
Scotland.
Ireland land.
Scotland.
Scotland. I always do that. Jesus Christ.
You get me and Dark. You get
Can you
me and
just-
Darkside mixed up. Darkside's Ireland and I'm Scotland.
I know, but I love both places, so it's
Aye.
okay. It's just going to be the way it is. Um, yeah, so we're pretty excited about getting started. And like I said, those of you all who aren't here, you're going to be sorry you missed us because we're going to have a good time. We're going to talk about, we're going to start discussing the book Death and Justice that I've been kind of pounding at everybody's heads lately. And we will be, oh, sorry about that. Let me shut that down. You're going to get to learn what we've been reading about this last couple of months that we have found so appalling in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, where I have friends who I just feel so sad about that have to live there and deal with it. But that's another subject, another story, another time that we won't discuss publicly. So, well, I don't know that we necessarily need to wait for anybody because you know what? You got the four of us, and how much more fun could that possibly be, right? So,
And the replay.
and yep, and then people can just come back and watch it later, and they'll be sad they didn't get to interact with us live. Just for the record, my good friend Jack did teach me this last week how to do a podcast style format. And I thought I was going to be able to do that for us tonight, but I didn't quite figure that out yet. So I have a scene, I have everything all ready to go. I just didn't know how to get my panel on. So I thought, I talked to the girls. I thought, I better not make an idiot of myself. We better just wait and see how it goes, and then we should be able to get this up and running for next time fairly easily. So it shows that we have 4 people watching, and I'm wondering if that's all 4 of us. So I'm just gonna say hi to I'm gonna say hello to the people in chat and see what happens. See who pops up. Well, it's not Alice. How about I don't recall? Nope, not. Oh, well, so whoever they are, they're lurking, and that's fine. Whoever you are.
Yeah, it's me.
Oh, is it you? So let me just really quickly. So, what happened to? Sheree just. Oh, she must have went out to go chat, and then she'll pop back in on us. So really quickly, what we're going to do is welcome back, Sheree. We're going to start, like I said, we're going to start discussing this book. It's one of the most outlandish yet incredible things I think I've read in a while. And we've been reading some books, with Jack over in Foul Play has been streaming some books and, things like that. And we've read and listened to some really good stuff. This one is like a sleeper, Death and Justice by Mark Fuhrman. It's a sleeper, but there is so much shocking and amazing and informative information that I hope that, you guys will all go over to Discord and catch up on the chapters that we've already recorded and catch up on it because it's really, really interesting. You're going to learn a lot about Bob Macy, who was the DA at the time. I don't recall exactly at the moment what the years were, but we'll get to that. It'll tell us in the book. And Joyce Gilchrist. And Joyce Gilchrist, if you're familiar at all with OKC Crime Lab and Daniel's case and Elaine Taylor, T1, welcome T1. Thank you for coming. Then you will know who. You'll understand who Joyce Gilchrist and Bob Macy are, and you'll learn how they managed to somehow leave this horribly disgusting legacy in the crime lab and in the DA's office, for that matter, that started way back in the 80s, maybe late 70s. I'm not really sure. Like I said, I don't remember exactly. So the whole idea behind this, and it was Daniel's idea. The whole idea behind this book club is that, hi Linda, hi Jack, thank you for coming. Is that Daniel wants to share his thoughts because he's also reading the book. Cherie had sent the book to Daniel. I don't even know if it was for his birthday or for Christmas or just because, or I don't recall. But well, that's not me, that's Cherie. But anyway, he started reading it, and he was mostly interested in the correspondence that I was getting from him. He was mostly only interested in anything in the book that said the name Elaine Taylor. And if you're familiar with anything, if you're new to the case and you don't know, Elaine Taylor is the crime lab analyst who really was very instrumental in being a part of ruining Daniel's life at this point, taking his freedom from him. Just like Gilchrist and Macy were so instrumental in sending so many men to death row, and some of those men wrongfully and innocently were also executed. Some of them are still there fighting for their freedom, fighting to be exonerated. And that is a great deal to do with Joyce Gilchrist and Bob Macy. Now, the reason it's important is because Elaine Taylor, who was the crime lab analyst in Daniel's case, was a underling, protege, subordinate, I don't know what you want to call her, of Joyce Gilchrist before Gilchrist. Hi, Sue. Thank you for coming. Before Gilchrist was terminated. So Daniel wanted to share his thoughts once he got the book, and it wasn't necessarily just about Elaine Taylor to him anymore. He wanted to kind of let Kay know that he'd like to share his thoughts with us about the book. So we're really excited about it, and we just got this wild idea because we don't have anything else to do. We got this wild idea. Well, we'll just do a book club and we'll put it out there for everybody to take part in if they'd like to. So having said that, we're going to get to Daniel's thoughts and opinions, but I wanted to know, Alice, just starting to get caught up, and I just want to know so far, and I don't want you to hold back or anything, but I just kind of want to know so far what you think with what let everybody know what you've read and what you think about it so far.
Oh, wow, my God, where do I bloody start? Jesus fucking Christ. The chapter, the introduction was okay. I got past that okay, but then when he got to chapter 1 and he actually started talking about the prison, it is literally like how you see it in the movies. And while he was describing it and everything, I could picture it. I could actually picture it. And Gilchrist, I don't know how she got as far in her business as what she did, because that woman is vile. She is absolute vile.
Agree.
Absolutely agreed. And like I said, I know that was hard, but I hope you don't hold back. I hope you're being completely honest with us.
Jesus fucking Christ is what comes to mind.
Yeah, it is. I know. And you know what? I'm so glad that you agreed to come on and be a part of this, because otherwise it kind of just sounds like me and Kay and Cherie kind of going off on something else, and we're really glad that we have somebody that's able to take part in it with us, that hasn't been a part of it and hasn't been, because we're up to, I think we finally got through chapter 11, the three of us together this last week. I haven't got it edited and uploaded yet, of course, but it's all kind of starting to come to a head now. But every page you read, every story you read, every case you read in this book is just mind-boggling. So
I
we're
mean
really. What's that?
that Bob Macy, Jesus fucking Christ, that guy needed to be hung, strung, and quartered long before
Yeah.
anything. You know what I mean? That is one horrible, horrible fucking bastard, is what I can say to that. The things that he's done, and I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm only on chapter 2, so I dread to think what's fucking coming next, to be honest.
Well,
Because what I've read so far, my God, that was a vile man, and I'm surprised nobody took him out. I really am.
yeah. It's you're only on chapter 2. You have no idea what's coming. So I'm glad that you're listening to it. So um so this we'll just go ahead, and you guys already know what Cherie and Kay and I think about it. We've mentioned it in many other different lives that we've done. So and we talk about it in Discord a little bit. So um what I'm going to do, I'm not really sure what I'm going to do, but since this was Daniel's idea, obviously we can't have Daniel with us. Of course, that's what we would really love to have. But what we're what we're going to do is, I'm not really sure. How should we do it? Okay, what do you think? Do you want to jump
Why
right
don't,
in with what Daniel thinks, or should we go ahead and start kind of going through some of the clips of the book? What do you think? I'm going to kind of.
how about if we read a clip and then
You'll.
if there's anything in that clip that Daniel had a thought about, I can say that. And if anyone else has a comment, and then we can
Okay.
move on. I think I set aside 4 or 5 different clips. So if you just want to start reading where I put a note in the private chat,
Okay.
and then you can stop at a natural break in
Okay.
the story there.
Okay. So I bear with me while I kind of toggle back and forth, guys. So we're starting at the introduction. Normally, I'm not much of an introductions kind of person. I'm like, I just want to get to the meat of a thing. But I'm really glad that I did read this introduction, because it's pretty powerful. So Kay has given me some parts that, let's see, page 1, third paragraph. Page 1, third paragraph.
On the introduction.
Okay, one. Page 1 is only a paragraph itself.
Of the introduction.
Yeah. Yep. So the introduction is titled "Welcome to Death Row," and it's an introduction it's about the length of a regular chapter.
Start at
So
the
third. So at first I suspected.
Correct.
Okay. Now, let me also say that this is the perspective of Mark Fuhrman, the author. If you're not familiar with Mark Fuhrman, he was part of the O.J. Simpson trial. That's all I can really say.
He was a Los Angeles detective.
Yeah, right, an LAPD
That was.
detective. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. You're right.
No, it's annoying to have a video where someone interrupts the person all the time, and that's what I do.
Stop. Anyway, so that's who Mark Fuhrman is, and Mark Fuhrman's written several books. But this one is on different cases, crime cases. This is one where he was curious about all the high death penalty death row cases in Oklahoma, so he decided on his own to go and investigate the death row cases that what's going on in Oklahoma, that there's so many death penalty cases. So I'll read the first clip from that Kay has suggested. He says, "At first, I suspected that most of the inmates released from death row might actually have been guilty of the crimes for which they were convicted. I'd seen it before. All convicts claim they're innocent, and sometimes their defense attorneys get their cases reversed on a technicality. Yet, in several recent death row releases, there had been evidence like DNA that could not be dismissed as a technicality. Since 1977, more than 100 inmates have been released from death row in the United States." I don't know if that was okay. Do you want me to go on with that one, Kay, a little bit, or?
Will you go on through the next paragraph?
Yep. So many of them had arguable claims of innocence. Some of them had clearly been railroaded, perhaps even intentionally framed. Was there something wrong with the death penalty? I decided to look into it myself. As I looked at individual cases in isolation, I saw some terrible miscarriages of justice. Police had fabricated confessions. Criminalists had lied or enhanced evidence. Prosecutors had cut corners. I wanted to understand how this happened and why. So I decided to focus on one jurisdiction and examine several cases together, looking not just at innocent people who had been convicted, but also at guilty suspects. I felt that the answer would lie not in the isolated cases, but in the entire process itself. From arrest to execution over a period of several years and many different cases, I wanted to know how the death penalty worked.
So Daniel was talking about all the things that he mentioned. I think he was speaking of this paragraph, talking about police had fabricated confessions, criminalists had lied and enhanced evidence, prosecutors had cut corners, or lied, as it ended up being in his case. But I could tell that he had skipped ahead, just looking for the names that stood out in the book, because that was the first thing he commented about was, you sure do see Elaine Taylor and Bob Macy, and there are just so many familiar names all throughout the book. I can't wait to read the whole book. So we were talking about, because, Fuhrman obviously went in not expecting it to be as bad as it was, it seemed like. And so Daniel was talking, we got into a conversation about, that would be any police officer's stance probably coming into something like that, because of their training and however long they've been in the career, that people saying that they're innocent, you don't think it's true. You just don't, even when you're that close, you are right in the middle of being a part of these cases. You just don't, you think that law enforcement is doing the right thing. He said, especially if you're not a corrupt officer. And in that way, he admitted that, he really realized that he was naive, because he got caught up in all of that and never would have thought that his department would have done that to him. So he's interested to get into the book and just see what the cases are that they're talking about. He's already anticipating, are there any cases that they're talking about that we can look into, or those kind of more or less strategy things, I guess. So if you want to move on to, what is the next? or anyone else who wants to talk about that. I think we're going to skip over the actual number of executions,
Okay.
or maybe you read that part. Since 77, more than 100 people were released from death row. 2001. In 2001, Oklahoma executed 21 people. Isn't that bizarre to think that one state would execute 21 people in 1 year? It's more than any other state.
13 in Oklahoma County alone, though. That's
Yeah, and 2001, because I think, wasn't that 2000, isn't that when?
That's when the reign of terror ended.
Okay, yeah. I think when it came down, you know, you guys did the work on the show that had all of the Gilcrease cases and all of that. But I think when it came down and Oklahoma crime lab was exposed in that way, it seems like a lot of things happened pretty quickly as far as people file in to try to get their cases overturned and stuff.
Yes. Yeah, that's especially, yeah, once, well, and even before that, Brian Boschel, who was at that point, oh gosh, was it the Oklahoma City
He was
police chief,
I thought he was the manager of the crime lab.
manager of the crime lab?
And
Yeah.
and then he also ended up being the security person at the hospital where Shardarion Hill was taken when she ate the PCP vial.
Right.
So he's involved in Daniel's story too.
Right.
In that way. So that's the other thing Daniel was commenting on already is I saw Boschel's name in there.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's going to see a few names. I won't say too much because I really want to encourage everybody to come and listen to the either pick it up and read it, on their own, or come and listen to what we've recorded and uploaded in Discord. Because there's several names that besides Gilchrist and Elaine Taylor and Brian Boschel, there's going to be several names that you may or may not recognize throughout this book. So just little teasers.
He also was really curious to the fact that the prison could be so clean as Fuhrman describes it, because he said prison is absolutely disgusting, and to have it described like that in the book, he said he had a really hard time believing it.
Yeah.
I just told him maybe the guards treat all the people like Cinderella and just make them clean all the time.
Yeah. Well, and two, it's important to remember that we're talking specifically about death row. And fortunately, Daniel is not on death row. I have no idea. I have no way of knowing, of course, but this was Mark Fuhrman's perspective, right?
Yeah.
Of what he saw. And let's also be real, they knew he was coming, right? I mean, he didn't just drop in for a cup of coffee. They knew he was coming. So maybe there was some
there's that.
There might have been some housekeeping being, some house cleaning being done, prior to his arrival. But Mark Fuhrman also does describe that, well, the lady or the guard or the person who took him on this tour at McAllister, also, she describes that, these guys, this is their home, this is their house. And besides the fact that we require them to keep it clean, they want to keep their house clean. So, there could be a lot of truth to that as well. So, okay. Any questions, any comments in the chat? Anybody have a thing they want to say about it, or just want to listen to what we're going to say and what Daniel has to respond with? Is that what we want to just keep up with that? Okay. So then the next one, Kay, unfortunately in my Kindle app, it doesn't tell me page numbers. So I'm just going to try to guess here that it's
H unit. It starts, the paragraph is
got it. I see it
H
now.
unit lockdown supermax.
Okay, now I see down at the bottom there where it says page. Each cell is, sorry guys, I'll be much better at this next time. Each cell is marked with a pair of letters. Is that where we're going next?
No. You want me to do it?
Maybe so. What did you say? Yeah.
I'll start.
Yeah.
I'll start. And
you start it and I'll figure out where you're at.
H unit lockdown supermax, whatever you want to call it, was built in 1990 following a violent prison riot in 1985, during which guards were taken hostage and several of them seriously injured. I talked to several prison employees who were there in 1985. They showed me pictures of the riot, inmates swarming the yard, guards bloody and bound. The prison museum has a collection of shivs and other weapons taken from the rioters. Having survived one nightmare, the Oklahoma Department of Corrections decided not to take another, so they built H unit. You want to continue from there?
Yeah. Just on to the next paragraph. I don't want to get in trouble because I don't know what my rules and laws and things like that are, so I don't want to.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about you getting busted on your channel. I don't know either.
I don't know what the laws are.
Well, let's skip ahead to the next section.
Okay. All right.
Because we already talked about his comments about it being clean.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And just to kind of reiterate that, it says that the person whose last name is Mann, this woman who's taking Mark Fuhrman on this tour, she says, quote, "The inmates on death row take pride in their unit," Mann said, "after I remarked how clean everything was, and we don't have a shortage of labor," she says, unquote.
I wanted to kind of skip ahead to the death process, to the
yeah, that was pretty
like on page 9. The first lethal injection in Oklahoma had its first execution by lethal injection in 1990.
Okay. Yeah, so I'll kind of preface that in 1997, Oklahoma had passed the first bill authorizing the use of lethal injection. Texas had passed a similar bill the very next day. And after Oklahoma law was passed, the then warden of McAllister in Oklahoma, Norman Hess, resigned, saying that he didn't want to participate in executions using lethal injection. Now, I just got chills again saying that again, because I didn't know how to take that. Kay, what do you think that he's saying by I
mean,
just felt like he wanted to see him fry.
He's okay with the electric chair. I think that's way more barbaric, don't you?
Yeah, I do too. And that's what I thought too. It just sounded like, well, if I can't watch him fry, I don't want to be a part of it. That's how I took it.
If I was going to die, I wouldn't mind dying by lethal injection.
I wouldn't either. Even though there's been some controversy with that, and we'll actually read a little bit about a case in Oklahoma where there was a really bad lethal injection that went bad. So, which is another really big case in Oklahoma.
Well, it's a good thing because he might actually
be in.
not get executed now because of that. He might actually get to live if we can get our shit together.
Yeah, and I'm not 100% certain, but there's a possibility that, I mean, I think it's still under review somewhere that he may actually be innocent, if I'm not mistaken, or I could be wrong. Kay would know better.
No, I think he is innocent.
Yeah, I think he may be innocent. His name is Goslip or Glossip, Richard or
Glossip,
yeah,
Richard Glossip.
Richard Glossip. So
Yeah, check that out. I'm not as educated with his case as anyone else's, for that matter. But what I know about his case, I feel like he was framed, and there's a real obvious suspect.
yeah, that's what I understand as well. Yeah, so Glossip, whose lethal injection execution was a near miss, but he was nearly executed by lethal injection, and it went really badly, the process itself. So he's the Supreme in 1972. The Supreme Court struck down all existing death penalty statutes in 1972. And that was a big case in Fuhrman versus Georgia. The court ruled that the death penalty as administered was cruel and unusual punishment. And then 4 years later, several states, including Oklahoma, rewrote their death penalty statutes to remedy the Supreme Court's concerns about that. And then, like Kay said, the first person executed under the new guidelines was Gary Gilmore in 1977. And that's a case close to me. Gilmore was shot by a firing squad in Utah, and Fuhrman had written a letter that was published in the Los Angeles Times: "One small step for Gary Gilmore, one giant step for mankind." God, that gives me chills. It's just ugh. Anyway. So yeah, like Kay said, the first execution by lethal injection was 1990. And the media was, just, it was a media circus, of course, at the time. So um, it's not as, I mean, now we still get lots of media attention and things like that for death penalty, or, for executions, but not like at the beginning like that when it first kind of got started. So and then let's see, we're going to kind of jump ahead to, what was that next one going to start with, Kay?
Kind of pick up where they're talking about the process of
yeah,
how they
okay.
make them walk into the room by themselves. And
yeah, this was really, I had a hard time when I read this part. And Alice, I know that you've listened to the introduction, right, Alice?
Yes.
How did you feel about the hearing the process of how did you feel about that process they go through?
It's vile. It's absolutely vile, and I don't understand that kind of thing is still going on in this day and age. You know what I mean? It's barbaric. What gives them the right to kill anybody? If that was your average Joe on the street, they'd be getting done for murder.
Yeah.
So, in my eyes, they're just as bad as the prisoners that they're keeping, because they're murdering them. They're no, I mean, I know they say a life for a life. That's fair enough, but give them a life in jail. They're not going to have a family. They're not going to be able to have kids. They're not going to be able to enjoy nights out. They're not going to be able to enjoy socialising apart from whatever they get, their hour or whatever it is that they get. You know what I mean? You don't need to kill them.
Right.
And I just think it's barbaric, and it shouldn't be going on. I mean, the last execution that was here in the UK was in, I think it was like 1964 or something like that, was the last execution that happened here in the UK. But I'd need to go and have a proper read at that. It was just something that I put in because I was curious after I had listened to the introduction in the first chapter and that, and I was like, well, I know they used to do it in the UK years and years and years ago, but how long ago? And it was, I think, the 60s, it said, was the last execution in the UK.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, even hanging and things like that. I mean, it's all barbaric, and I don't understand how they feel it's right for them to take that person's life, especially now when you're hearing more and more about people who are innocent, and there's DNA to prove that they're innocent, but the courts don't listen, and the Supreme Courts don't listen, and they execute innocent men or women, and it is just fucking disgusting.
It is, and that's the thing that turned my mind. That's what. Well, I'm not going to. I think differently about the death penalty than I used to, in the sense that I don't. It's not worth the risk of executing an innocent person, in my opinion. So,
No.
what I'll do. Kay is kind of outlining, talking about a very specific place, but I'll just kind of tell you briefly that, according to the book. The day of execution, the inmate is woken around 6 or 7 a.m. and it's a day of, it's like a process of things that they're going through. And they are given the opportunity to take care of their legal matters. They will discuss if they need to, have a burial, or who will take care of their body once they're killed. And so they have, legal things that they can, take care of at that time. And then they're escorted into a cell. It's called LL cell, letter LL, all day long. And there's two corrections officers that will stand outside of that cell throughout the entire day. And the inmate is given, the opportunity to have visitors for most of the day. They're not allowed to touch. They're not allowed to, hug or anything like that. But in Oklahoma, anyway, they're allowed to speak with their family and friends for pretty much, like I said, for most of the day. But they do it through the barrier. Um, he talks about how some of these inmates are able to convince some of their visitors to smuggle in drugs for them, one way or another, so that the inmate, the convicted person can, attempt to take their own life before their scheduled execution. And, there's could be many different reasons why one would choose to do that. Number one, they have that power and that control. If they're able to take their own life before the state can do that, I can see where, especially if there's not going to be a stay or anything, any kind of reprieve, especially if I'm innocent. I don't know. I can't even say what I would do. But anyway, if that happens and an inmate is able to get drugs smuggled in, and he's able to take any kinds of drugs to take his own life before the scheduled execution, oh, don't worry, because they rush them right to the emergency room, to the hospital, and they save their life in the emergency room. And this is one of the most barbaric,
This is
horrific things to
horrible.
me.
Yeah.
This is horrible. They will rush them to the emergency room, save their life, pump their stomach, do whatever they have to do, and then get them right back down to death row so that they can take their life. And the medical examiner at the prison can do the pronouncement of death on their own. I just find that the most horrific. It's just horrific to me.
I mean, it is. That is. I mean, see when I heard that, I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me?"
Yeah.
Instead of just letting them do it of their own accord, what difference does it make? They're gonna die anyway. But I think it's because they want to take the gloating power
Yeah.
that it was them that done it. You know what I
Sick.
mean? And the fact that they don't even get to cuddle their family or anything like that, you know what I mean? That is just it's no fucking right. It really isn't right. It is all wrong in every sense of the word. And I was enraged when I heard that they take them away to the hospital, pump their stomach and everything like that, and then take them right back to where they were, and then execute them themselves so that they can get it in the papers and everything else that they done it.
Yeah. It's terrible. There's they recount a specific inmate who had attempted this, and it was in 1995. Robert Bretching had overdosed on drugs hours before his scheduled execution, and the prison officials rushed him to the local hospital and got his stomach pumped. And once he was conscious and stable, he was brought back to the H unit there to the death chamber where he was, given the lethal injection. And I just, I was just astounded and shocked. I just thought it was, it's not enough that we're going to take somebody's life one way or the other, but we're going to make sure that it's us. We're the ones who do it. And I just, I don't know. To me, it'd be like if I were on the side of an executioner or of a state where I was like in favor of that, I would think, well, okay, well, there's some money saved, some time saved, some mental possible trauma saved, but no, they needed that, like Alice said, that glory. Did Daniel have anything to say about that, Kay?
Well, we were talking about if you were in prison and like you knew that you weren't getting out, would you rather would you rather stay in prison? Would that be worse punishment than having lethal injection? Because if that were me, I would want to have lethal injection right away. I wouldn't want to, if I knew there was no way I was ever going to get out, I wouldn't want to be there.
Right.
And, it's different for him. And,
right.
That ended up being somewhere that we had to turn the conversation around a little bit, because it
doesn't apply to him that way.
Well, it doesn't apply, but it's also really dark thoughts.
Sure.
And he doesn't.
I mean, in a sense, though, the situation that Daniel's in right now, it is like a death sentence to him.
Yeah.
In
right.
a sense, because he knows he's innocent.
Mm-hmm.
And he knows that he never done these fucking horrible things that they're accusing him of doing.
Yeah.
So just even being locked up there for 23 hours a day or whatever it is that he is, and only getting out for an hour and everything like that, that is a death sentence to Daniel, in a sense, and it's only because of his sister and his family. And hopefully now that he knows that there's a lot of supporters out there, hopefully that is giving him the sort of oomph to continue on and be like, well, maybe it's not so much a death sentence. I dread to think what was going through Daniel's head when he first went in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been there too, Alice, definitely trying to imagine a lot of situations that he went through and what that would feel like, and what would I be thinking. And I don't know. I've always been the weird kind of person who always tries to figure people out and tell by their body language and all kinds of things what they're thinking. So
Right.
Yeah.
But hey, to finish the thought, I did end up saying, hey, so were you ever I think I said, did you support the death penalty? And it was so weird, his reaction when I said that. It's like he kind of cocked his head and screwed up his mouth a little bit where the corner of his mouth was turned down, and he kind of set his eyes down toward the floor, almost like a embarrassed, kind of humbled position. And he just by then I said, do you do you support the death penalty now? Before he answered my first question as all this stuff was going on. And he just shook his head like left to right, like, no way. No
Right.
way. Then we got into this conversation about how many innocent people get executed and how easy it is to have your liberty stripped away, and how more people, that he was guilty. I said I was guilty of not recognizing that it was a problem until it affected someone. Well, for him, until it affected him, but until it hits close to home. And I guess because when I looked into it and saw that this person that I didn't know, but I could drive across town and knock on his dad's door if I wanted to, that it seemed like I couldn't be this close to it and not help. And then I'm just horrified now at how aloof I was. And then watching and trying to get people to get involved, and people don't even want to touch that subject. I'll post things, musical things, or vacation pictures in the mountains, or things that people really like on Facebook, and they'll get a bajillion likes. You post something like that and people just stay away from it like the plague.
Yeah.
Because they don't, I don't want someone to see I liked that, because they might not shop at my store or whatever. Just
Let my kids play with their kids. Yeah.
self-preservation. So I don't know. However, I got way the hell over here where I am talking about this. I don't know. We can go back to the book now.
It invokes a lot of different emotions, though. So
it does. I mean, it's not just that. It's the poor buggers I feel sorry for, the ones that get a death sentence in their own death row. And their own death row for 10, 15, 20 years.
Oh, I know.
I mean, I don't agree with the death penalty, and I even more so new with the fact that innocent people are getting executed here. And there's DNA proof to get them out of that situation, but the courts don't want to listen. The prosecutors keep fighting for something that's fucking no there, because there's DNA proof to say that, look, this guy never fucking done it.
Mm-hmm.
But they're still fighting for it to go ahead and for them to get executed. And it's they poor buggers that have waited that length of time. Yeah. Why not just, if you've got actual proof, 100% without a doubt proof that they've done it, and you're fucking sending them to death row, then put them to fucking death in a week or a month or a year or whatever. Don't wait fucking 20 years and then decide, oh, wait a minute, he was jailed in fucking 1970. He's been in there for 30 years, right? It's time to end his life now. You know what I mean? It is madness the way that the system works. It really
is madness. And we have to back up, and we have to change our laws, and we have to take away, we have to start making laws that will hold people accountable for creating these situations in the first place, where these people are even incarcerated in the first place.
Yeah.
These freaking cops that, can't seem to transfer the facts from a police report to an application to the DA, to file charges. All of the stinking crimes that they commit to make their fiction work. We have got to get rid of those freaking corrupt people.
Oh, I just wanted to reply to something that Sue's put in the chat. I've been guilty of thinking there are crimes that should have the death penalty, like child sex offenders in particular. But then I think there is a chance that the person charged may be innocent. That's fair enough, Sue, and I do agree with that. But when you've got somebody like Ian Huntley, who was proven without a shadow of a doubt that he killed 2 wee lassies here in the UK, fair, maybe not give him the death penalty, but put him in a fucking woman's prison. Tell the women what he's done, and I guarantee you, he's not coming out there a fucking live. And that'll be their punishment. Anybody who is convicted of child sex offences, and it's proven without a doubt, aye, they deserve everything that they get. But maybe not give them the lethal injection or the electrocution. Put them in a women's prison and tell them what he's done, and I guarantee he's coming out of there in a body bag. If he doesn't, he's very fucking lucky.
I just have to, it's so funny. I have to address T1 right now because Jack, I don't know if you're still here or not, but I hope you don't mind me. I won't say one way or another, but we just had a conversation about Chris Watts a couple night before last, I think it was. And I'm just going to say what I said to Jack. While I disagree with the death penalty, I realized after Chris Watts' case, it wasn't so much that it's hard to say this, and I realized that it must not be as much about that I just don't agree with taking another person's life, because I I admitted to Jack that if I were going to support anybody being killed by lethal injection via the death penalty, it would be Chris Watts. It would definitely be Chris Watts, because he admitted to what he did, and he took the life of his 3 children, of his own 3 children and his wife. And you know and so I had to take pause and think, what do I agree with the death penalty or don't but do I have to make a decision, yes or no, or can there be some can there be some things, where I would be like, well, yeah, you killed your own 3 kids in the most brutal manner. So should you be allowed to live your life out? Well, then I have to think, you know what? He's not going to live a very decent life in prison,
No.
having done what he did. And, so it'll be a death penalty of complete mind, you know,
Yeah.
fuck for him. So
Aye.
so
Oh,
I don't
aye. I
know.
mean,
Well, I guess I really can't say. I can't say. I still I just disagree with the death penalty, and I just feel like for me, I have to just decide one way or another. It's wrong or it's right, and I got to find a way that the Chris Wattses, and the Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell people that take the lives of children. I got to figure out a way that them spending the rest of their life in prison is a death sentence for them, and in not just in the physical sense, but in the mental sense. I don't know. Now we're venturing into other areas, and I don't want to get too far off track, but I do want to go through, though, because I really think that this is very impactful. I do want to kind of go through and read what the inmate goes through at the time of when it gets down to that hour. Um,
aye.
as I think it's common. I think we all pretty much know that inmates, or the death row inmates, they get to choose last meals and things like that. And in Oklahoma, evidently Oklahoma County, they are on like a limit of price limit, or whatever the word is that I'm trying to, like a limit of how much money they get to spend, and they only get to spend it at certain areas within the county, certain fast food restaurants or whatever that they might like. But excuse me, he eats his last meal, that the inmate will eat their last meal around noon. And they're allowed to have anything available to them in the local community that costs up to $15. And they're not allowed to use their own funds. So they're allowed to spend $15 of the state's money or the taxpayers' money. But if they wanted to go out and splurge, and spend $100 and have steak and lobster and whatever brought in from whatever, they are not allowed to do that. So they can spend up to $15, and from their local from their local areas. A lot of times, I mean, some of these people will choose, childhood memories, their favorite, if they loved eating Cocoa Puffs as a kid, but didn't ever have them while they were in prison on death row, then, they might just want a big fat bowl of Cocoa Puffs or, whatever, that a lot of times they'll want to have just junk foods that they haven't been able to have in all the years they've been on death row. And sometimes they just want to have a Coke, a can of Coke or whatever, or junk food or whatever. And, so they get to make those kinds of choices for their last meal. Others, like I said, sometimes they'll just want a specific item that mama made, mama's cornbread or mama's, I don't know, sweet potato pie or whatever, things like that. Some of them, Wendy's was their favorite thing to eat when they were, had freedom, and, they saw a commercial on TV while they were on death row, and they're like, yep, I think I want that Baconator and French fries and the Coke to go with it, kind of thing. So, after they eat their last meal, they're allowed to visit with their visitors for a few more hours. And then often the execution is scheduled for later that night. And if it isn't scheduled until later, then they can have the prison dinner off the prison line if they would like to, if they're still hungry. I just, my mind thinks I can't even imagine that I'd want anything, the entire day, but I don't know. So that's apparently, according to Mark Fuhrman in the book, during the time that he was writing the book and investigating the cases in Oklahoma, they were scheduling. McAllister was scheduling their executions early in the evening, so that the noon meal was the last thing that the inmate would eat. And about an hour before the execution, the visitors are all escorted out of LL, the cell area. The chaplain will come in and speak with the inmate and, listen to any confessions and give him the last rites if he's a Catholic or, whatever. The inmate will be dressed, and I'm going to try not to read this word for word so I don't get into any copyright issues, but this is really, really powerful. And it actually made me very emotional reading this. The inmate is dressed in a light blue outfit that resembles surgical scrubs. And at about 20 minutes before the execution, the warden will come in and ask the inmate, "Are you ready to walk with me?" quote unquote. And the inmate will follow the warden through the door into the death chamber. If my voice cracks, please don't judge me, because this is really hard. But he will lead the inmate into the death chamber. And the book does mention that aside from the Robert Breachin incident where his suicide was thwarted, and he was whatever, they say there had never been a problem with the inmate following the warden through the door into the death chamber. And by now, at this point in time, the inmate knows this is it, that they pretty much accept the fact that they're about to be executed. And minutes before the execution, H unit erupts into noise. Inmates bang on their cell doors and rattle the bars. They shout and wail. This continues until they know that the time of execution is past and that the inmate is dead. At every execution, a group of family members of the murder victims and death penalty supporters gather outside the prison walls. Many of them arrive together in large groups in large motorhomes, and they have a somber, I don't know, tailgate sort of party. And excuse me, pardon me. And then nearby in the very same area, but I believe separated, for safety reasons, most likely, the opponents of the death penalty will also hold a candlelight vigil in protest of the death penalty. And according to the author, Mark Fuhrman, and to the lady leading the tour, it's often the same people that show up for the candlelight vigil in protest of the death penalty. If it was a high profile case or not, the media presence can range from hundreds of journalists to just, a handful. On the day of the execution, the H unit basically will shut down. No inmate other than the one to be executed leaves his cell, and there are no visitors other than those visiting the condemned. While the inmates' visitors are secured elsewhere, 3 men enter the prison. They arrive separately and do not know each other's names. Their identities are kept secret from nearly every other prison employee. They are the executioner. Each man walks alone past the room, so each executioner walks in separately by themselves into the room through the double doors, down the empty hall, upstairs, and past the visitors' windows. And he opens the yellow door and walks into the death room. Behind a white door with the death within the chamber itself, the 3 men gather at that point in the executioner's room, and there they wait for the order to proceed. And each one of the 3 executioners wears a black hood. Let's see. Executioner's room is very small, and it's described as not being much bigger than a supply closet. There's a cinder block wall and there are 3 concrete shelves and, different places where they keep supplies. And the executioners set up 3 different chemical doses of saline solutions that run through 2 holes in the wall and into the IV units in the inmate's arm. And the local hospital provides the drugs until the doctors there decided that participating in executions was contrary to their Hippocratic oath, which makes perfect sense, right?
Right.
For the same reason, the executioners are not doctors themselves, and the doctor in the death chamber is not there to participate in the actual execution and only to monitor the inmates' breathing and life and heart monitor and all that, and to pronounce death, or in the case of an emergency. And then the phone is there in the witness seating area that a prison official uses to call the governor before the execution to make sure there will not be any last minute stays. A reprieve is not usually likely to happen. Usually on the day before the execution, the U.S. Supreme Court will inform the inmate's lawyer that all of his legal appeals have been exhausted. Specifically, it says in this part of the book, Governor Frank Keating has granted only one executive clemency. He reduced Flip DeWitt Smith's death sentence to life without parole on March 1st of 2001 on the recommendation of the Oklahoma Pardon and Parole Board after the prosecution's star witness recanted testimony. Wow, isn't he a peach? I don't know anything about Governor Keating. I don't know anything about Oklahoma politics, but how nice. Once the word from the governor has been received that there won't be any stays, the prison official places a call to the phone inside the death chamber, and the warden gets the okay. He announces that the execution will begin. The inmate will lie down on the gurney. Well, I think he's actually already on the gurney, which has been covered with sterile blue sheets. When the inmate dies, his bowels and bladder will release. Nylon straps with Velcro fasteners secure his body. His arms are strapped down to the metal armrests, and a registered phlebotomist places an IV unit in each arm. He is hooked up to a heart monitor, and a white sheet covers him from the waist down. Once the inmate's prepped for execution, the blinds on the window of the witness seating area are lifted. The gurney has been raised so that the inmate is almost in a seated position. And he faces sideways to the witnesses. And through the glass, he's able to see the first 2 rows of witnesses that are there to witness his execution. But he cannot see past the tinted glass where the family members of the victims sit. Obviously, they will sit into a different area. The inmate is given the opportunity at that point to make a final statement if they want. If he wants to say something, there's a microphone that would be lowered down from the wall behind him, and he can say, what he needs to say. And it says in the book that usually the condemned says goodbye to his family. Sometimes he apologizes to the victims and their families. And then when the inmate is finished speaking, the warden gives the command for the execution to commence. In his log, the warden records every single move that the the condemned makes. Every move, every eye blink, every finger twitch, every toe wiggle, everything is recorded by the warden, and every physical reaction. Inside the executioner's room, the executioner pushes a button. First, sodium. Each executioner, I should say, pushes a button. First, sodium pentothal is injected, and that causes unconsciousness. And then next is a saline flush, which clears out the IV to ensure that the chemicals don't mix inside the inmate's bloodstream. And then I can't pronounce the word. I can say electrophoresis, but I can't say this word. Pancuronium, I think it's pancuronium bromide is injected, and that basically paralyzes the condemned's breathing. And then there's another saline flush, and then potassium chloride is injected, which stops the heart from beating. As the lethal injection is administered, the chaplain reads aloud from the Bible. The whole process usually takes from 4 to 6 minutes. The doctor will lean over the inmate and look for signs of life. He then checks the heart monitor and officially declares the inmate dead. And the warden duly notes this in detail in his log. And Lee Mann, the lady who or the person who did this tour for Mark Fuhrman, said that every inmate reacts differently, but it's generally very peaceful. I don't know, it makes my blood run cold. And then once the inmate is declared dead, the blinds are lowered and the witnesses are escorted out. First, the inmate's family and friends and attorneys, and then later the victims' families and people who were there. Of course, there are great pains are taken to, keep the two parties separate naturally. And then the medical examiner drives up to the H unit in the station wagon, and the inmate's body is loaded off of the gurney into the stretcher and the car and carried through the witness room. And then they just kind of go backwards from how they started. And so when you hear that, if you listen to what I've read and uploaded in Daniel's Truth, to hear it word for word and all the detail is very, I don't know, it caused a lot of emotion for me to read it. I've read it probably 4 or 5 times, maybe more. And every time I read it, it invokes the same emotion in me. And I don't even know where that emotion comes from. But the body is loaded into the wagon, and the inmate is then taken to McAllister's Regional Hospital. They don't perform an autopsy. They do save tissue samples for the ME's records. And unless the family or there is anybody there to make arrangements, or the inmate is buried in the Department of Corrections cemetery just outside of the penitentiary grounds. And it's called Peckerwood Hill. And the cemetery is the final resting place for more than 600 inmates and 3 babies born to female inmates at McAllister. And then, so that's kind of a summary, I guess, of the actual execution process itself. What did Daniel have any comments about that part of the book? Okay.
No,
Talk about that.
I think he kind of just really stayed away from that, because as much emotion as that, as dark as that is to us, it's just some place I don't think he wanted to go.
Not even sure.
He did want me to, just let everyone know that he really is excited about doing this, because it is some way that he can connect to the outside world and feel more normal, and just have things like this to, really be a more normal part of your day, since there are no programs for him in there being in PC. They just don't have those resources like general population does. So he's really looking forward to going through this book and, just kind of seeing the inside of Oklahoma County and the Oklahoma County Crime Lab and the DA's office and studying the history of that. And he's looking forward to getting some paragraphs from people who are following along from week to week or popping in every once in a while. And I don't know if maybe to make it easier so that if anyone wants to submit a paragraph or two, just, random thoughts about the chapters, submit to Rhonda, and she could just send them all in an email kind of form. She has the ability to get a message to him, faster through JPay. So yeah, looking forward to really getting into the meat of the book, and I know that he was too.
And I think, what are we going to next time? We're going to cover chapters 1 and 2. Am I correct? Okay.
Yeah, 1 and 2.
Okay. Cherie, my loudmouth co-host, what do you? I'm trying to lighten the mood here a little bit. I can get pretty heavy sometimes. So, what do you have anything you'd like to add or?
Well, the two things that you that stuck out to me, besides what you've mentioned already, was the how he said that the interest in watching these executions, unless it's a high profile case, it used to be a big thing, and they had to almost limit how many people could come, but now it's not so much. It's usually, unless it's a high profile case, it's just the usual protesters, the family and that sort of thing. So I thought that was interesting how it changed over the years, the interest in watching it. And also how they talk about how white and pristine and sterile and everything is, and the executioners wear hoods, and it's like they're trying to make it clean to make themselves feel better. I don't know.
That's so gross.
It is, yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah,
those are a couple
to
things.
make it look less evil and vile and dirty, right? Cherie?
Yep.
Yeah.
Whitewash the death.
There you go.
Yep.
Whitewash the death. I like that. That's a good explanation. And I've been watching I actually I don't know how I have managed to do it, but I came across a whole bunch of stuff on Amazon Prime about death penalty and death row and wrongful convictions. And I just went nuts for days, just like binge watching all of these. It got really, really heavy, and it was not good for me mentally to hear all these different stories, especially the ones with the wrongful convictions. But, on a I don't know how many people in chat have seen the movie Green Mile. It's in my top 5 favorites. It's that even though that's a Stephen King novel or movie or whatever, man, I'll tell you what, that was a that's a hard movie to watch regarding
It's heart-wrenching.
heart
It
wrench.
is heart-wrenching, that film. And I still get a lump in my throat to this day when I watch it.
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
Hey, Alice, you were talking about you were making me think about the West Memphis 3, something you said earlier, talking about how they have people just languish away for 30 years on death row, and they're just in no hurry to do what it takes to get them out. That reminded me, are you familiar with the West Memphis 3 case?
I've seen something about it. Oh God, I can't mind what it was. I think it was something on Netflix. No, that long ago.
Paradise Lost, maybe. They kind of had a trilogy, but There's one show called West of Memphis, and one of the West Memphis Three, Damian Eccles, he and his wife were involved in the production of West of Memphis. So it tells the whole story and even more, and does a better job than the trilogy that was put out while they were trying to get those guys out of there. But they ended up getting all 3 guys off of death row. But they went through some horrific abuse while they were in there. And it's interesting to follow those guys now, especially Damian Eccles. He's an artist, and he's really into magic.
Is that the one that they were saying that was satanic and worship?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what network it's on, Susan.
If any,
I think you can get it on Amazon Prime. I don't know where else, but
I think at one time I had to purchase it, but I have seen it for free before.
we'll find out. Where's our? I'm sure Catnet's looking for it right now.
We only stream at this house, so.
Yeah. Same. Kind of like the Central Park Five. You know, those boys, and they were children. Well, so were the West Memphis Three, but you know, these poor kids, the Central Park Five, man, I tell you what, they were also abused and treated horrifically. And
Yeah, they were. I met
So-
one of those guys after he got out, Santana. He was going around doing speeches at colleges. It was pretty interesting.
oh wow, interesting.
They were doing that on the heels of the movie that came out. What was that called, Rhonda?
When they see us, or if they see
Yeah.
us,
Oh
when
my
they see
God.
us.
When they see us,
When They
was
See
what
Us.
it was called, because I watched that
Oh my
first,
God.
and when I watched it and it got to the end and they got released and everything like that, I thought brilliant, and that's what got me onto Making a Murderer, with Stephen and Brendan, because I'd watched that first and I was hoping for the happy ending. And it didn't, and I was like, surely these guys are, and I googled and realized that they were still in, and that's how I got involved in it that way, and that's when I started learning more and more about the wrongful convictions and everything like that. And then I remembered seeing a wee bit of something on our news about Daniel, and I think it was just cop arrested to, and I wasn't sure how long he got, but they must have mentioned that it was the 263 years, because I was like, whoa, that's an awful bloody lot. And the more and more I've dug into the wrongful convictions, and the more I've dug into Daniel's case as well, it's like how these prosecutors and that can get away with it. They need to get rid of that fucking prosecutor immunity and the accountability for the cops as well.
Mm-hmm.
That needs to go. And I mean, with Bob Macy, I know he was a bastard, but I just wish there was somebody like him there for Daniel, with them saying that he never got let a cop get convicted or anything like that. For a slight,
He would have turned and done the same thing to save the city. I think he would be just as dirty as Prater.
You think?
Yeah, I do. I think.
Well, for a wee split second, I thought if there was just somebody that had that mentality for Daniel, you know, it might have been a wee bit different for him. Somebody actually having his back in a sense and no throwing him under the fucking bus.
That would have been nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would have been
Because you know what? Here's the thing. I would give up all the friendships that I've made in our community, between foul play and, with Stephen and Brendan and Daniel's case, I'd give up all of these friendships in a heartbeat to for any of these men to have had a hero.
Aye.
Much as I love you guys, and I'm so grateful for the friendships that I've formed and that we've made. I'd give it all up in a heartbeat if they could all just walk free like they should.
Definitely.
It'd be nice not to need these communities.
Yes, it sure would. It sure would. I believe that some way, one way or another, we could have all, come together in a different way. But I would rather it not be this way for sure. Now, I do want to kind of say, I don't want to harp on this because I know we're kind of trying to already move on, but I just have to say that that female prosecutor in the Central Park 5 case, oh my God.
Kill.
I just
Give her some lethal injection.
Yeah. Let's find a sock for her, right? I mean, I know that's brutal to say, but Jesus.
No, I really do think the bigger punishment is doing the time.
I agree. And it's cheaper. People talk about, well, let's get them out. Let's get them out of prison. Let's go ahead and execute them because it's too much money for the taxpayers, and it costs more money to keep somebody on death row and then execute them than it does to just keep somebody in prison for life without without the possibility of parole than it does to execute.
I didn't know that. Daniel was telling me that. I didn't think that was true. Oh, well, I can't wait to tell him.
That's true. It was something that we studied in criminal justice in many of my different courses that I took in my college, in college, and whether it was in my criminalistics or intro to forensics or prison issues or whatever it was, whatever class it was in studying criminal justice, we talked about how it was more expensive to execute somebody than it is to keep them in prison for life without parole. So I like when people say, well, let's just execute them. It's cheaper. No, it's not. It's not. So, yeah. All right. Wow. Hopefully this has been, this is just a teaser. And like Alice has said, when I was asking her opinion, when she got to chapter 1 and into chapter 2, she's even more, appalled and horrified and disgusted. And I think we all felt the same way. Wait till you get to chapter 11.
Oh, don't say that. Don't say that.
There are lots of cases. The author will give lots of case information stories that will, some of them we actually covered. If you go back to, I think it was in October, just before Halloween, we did the presentation about Joyce Gilchrist, and we highlighted several death row inmates that she was instrumental in putting in prison who were innocent. And we're going to read about some of them read about some of those guys in this book as well. So
when I was listening to it and they were saying Gilchrist, I'm like, I know that fucking name. How do I know that name? And then it took a wee while before the penny dropped. I was like, that's the bit just is that Elaine one learned off it.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. Yeah. Elaine, and well, again, I'm not going to tell, there's going to be quotes by Elaine Taylor in this book. You're just going to have to go listen to it or buy it and read it or whatever. But preferably you could just come over to Daniel's Truth and listen to, like I said the other day, my amazing, just captivating voice and hear me read it. But you're going to hear Elaine Taylor make some quotes in the coming chapters that are just going to blow your mind.
I was having a wee chuckle. You started, I think it was chapter 1. that you started, Rhonda, and you were doing the voices. In the
Yes.
I was like, that's fucking brilliant.
Yeah. I did kind of take some shit for that, so I kind of quit doing that.
Oh no, I thought that was brilliant. I was having chuckles left, right, and center.
Well, don't get like excited with it and happy with it and used to it, because I think I by the time I got through chapter 2 I might have quit doing that.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, so for nothing else, go listen to chapter 1. I do all the different voices. Or I attempt to.
Oh, cool. Thanks, Susan, for turning your girlfriend on to the podcast. That's really cool.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, that's awesome.
Man, that really hooks people into the case because you can binge it.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're that kind of personality.
Well, and if you're, if you've got the kind of job or whatever, or life where you can listen to things, but you can't really do much else, but you can listen to podcasts, it's, you're going to get a lot from Brian Bates for sure. So.
Yeah. Hey, before we run out of here, I don't know how you wanted to end, but I just really do want to encourage everyone, as you read a chapter or listen to a chapter, to just write down a couple thoughts and, zip it over to Rhonda so we can send it to him at the time that he's absorbing the chapters as well. I just feel like it'll make him feel like he is a part of the chat as I describe to him what StreamYard is and how it works, and
Right.
Things that are things that he didn't know about.
Things he has no idea of,
He's
right?
missing out. I think it's cool if he can kind of at least have a visual picture of how things work, because you really don't think about getting disconnected from the outside world in that sense of not even knowing what something would look like. What would a Twitter screen look like? Anyway.
Yeah.
All right.
And that's, really, this is the only way that Daniel has. He wants to be a part of us. He wants to be a part. Yeah. Good luck with that, Jack. You can't even explain OBS to me hardly. And I touch it.
Yeah, that's funny, Jack. You're funny.
You're such a funny. I almost called you today, Jack, and said, here's my background. Here's my this. Here's our that. You're going to do it. You're going to just do this. You do it over. You did it for Doc in Foul Play. You got your open mic thing going. You are a pro at this, so you can run our podcast for us. But well, anyway, we'll get it figured out.
You can do it.
Yeah, because that's the whole goal, guys. And just so you guys know, we want to. I kind of want to have it. So, I mean, with StreamYard, I'm limited because I'm not paying the ridiculous amount of money they want. To, have unlimited or up to 10 guests or whatever. I want to be able to I want our panel on this book topic for Daniel's book club. I want it to grow. I want the panel to grow, and I want to be able to have, as many people in that, like with open mic, Jack's got, there are times at any given time, I've counted before, 18 people on the panel, before. And we really, really, really want to get to a point where we can have a panel in that way where we can involve as many of you. I'm getting tired of listening to me, and Cherie, for God's sake, I can't get her to stop talking. So
I know, you kind of get a word down edgeways when that woman starts.
It's like, God, Cherie, shut the fuck up so other people can talk, right? But we want to hear, you guys all know how the three of us and how Alice, because she's talking with us, and we've had Jack on our show before. We've had Ripper's been on the show before, and so you guys know how we all feel, or what our opinions are and how strong, how passionate we are. But we want to use this book club because it's Daniel's idea, we want to use this book club for as many people to engage with Daniel as we possibly can. And I think it'll be great. I think we can do it. I think we can have a really, really good, you know, a really great book club, bookcast, as I've decided I want to call it, you know, to include Daniel in our chats and, you know, our opinions and things like that. And this is something he can get involved in that way. So
yeah, I think if we have 5 or 6 people sending him paragraphs, he'll feel like he's in the book club.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
it's cool.
in his own book club, right?
Yep.
All right. I think this is great. Hopefully this was enough of a tease that you'll want to go over and start listening to the other chapters in the book that we have uploaded so far. And I'll spend the rest of tonight and the weekend trying to get everybody caught up and get the rest of the chapters uploaded into so that you can catch up to where we are now. And I think you'll be just as shockingly entertained by it as we have been. And remember, these are true crimes. These are true cases that Mark Fuhrman has written a book about the Martha Moxley case back in the 70s that involved Skakel, one of the Kennedy relatives and whatever. And he wrote a book, another one, Murder in Brentwood, which was a case that he was involved in, the O.J. Simpson case. He's got several books. So once we get through this one, I'm actually going to I'm not good at this kind of stuff. So if anybody in the chat is, or you know, Cherie or Kay or Alice, if you know, yeah, T1, actually, I was asked to ask you to be on this panel with the book club. Somebody asked me if I thought you'd be interested, and I said, yeah, T1 kind of has this stupid, dumb, knowing people know that T1 just doesn't talk. Well, you need to come on and start talking about this book with us, T1. You need to go listen to it and you need to start talking with us because it's a big deal. So that's my challenge to you. Don't you get smart with me either. Anyway, so check out Mark Fuhrman's other books as well. But first of all, come and listen to this one, get caught up with us. And if nobody else has anything to say, Cherie, Kay, Alice.
Nope. Nope.
All right.
See
Well,
ya.
with that, we're gonna go ahead and end, and we hope to see you here next time on the next edition of Daniel's Truth Bookcast. Peace out.
Bye.